Johann Gutenberg was born in Mainz around the year 1397. Gutenberg lived in Mainz until 1428, when a dispute caused him to move to Strasbourg. He resided in Strasbourg between 1434 and 1444. In 1439, a man Gutenberg had been working with told a judge that Gutenberg had been engaged on a project with printing for 3 years. On top of that, Gutenberg was also purchasing lead, which suggests that he had reached the stage of casting. Gutenberg returned to Mainz by 1448, seeking a loan. 2 years later, Gutenberg was out seeking another loan, which caused him to put what made him famous on the line, the 42-line Bible. The making of the 42-line Bible caused Gutenberg to have many trials and errors with lettering and fonts. The letter forms cut and cast by Gutenberg and other early printers were according modeled on popular manuscripts hands of the day, and not designed to reflect in any way the difference between manuscripts and printing. When Gutenberg began his search for a practical way to make movable type, he had no question about the character of the letter he was looking for, the best possible imitation of the most highly regarded manuscript hand of his day. Fortunately, northern black leathers were at a time in ascendancy in Mainz. This accident helped the first European type cutter because just as Gothic letter forms are easier to write Roman, they are also easier to cut. There's less subtlety in Gothic shapes as well as in the mechanics of joining them in words and sentences. Although Gutenberg was interested in imitating the appearance of manuscript books, his method differed radically from calligraphic practices. His written models were translated into steel through a sculptural process. The casting of type was Gutenberg's great contribution to practical printing, and the art changed little for several centuries. There were no improvements in the composition of type metal and in the design and construction of the hand mold, but the basic techniques were not greatly altered. Fonts vary in size according to the language that they are intended for and the special or alternative characters involved. The font used in Gutenberg's 42-line Bible includes no fewer than 290 characters, though the text is all in Latin, which requires a basic character set of only 40 letters, 20 lowercase, and 20 caps, and some marks of punctuation. The large number of extra sorts was the result of Gutenberg's resolve to imitate the abbreviations, ligatures, and other special characters found in the contemporary manuscripts that were his models. Gutenberg made bars with numbers, capital letters, lowercase letters, and large decorative letters called versals. Usually versals were used to mark the beginning of a chapter and make the page look more attractive. He also made many bars of type that were not letters. He made type for punctuation marks and even blank bars called spacers for all the spaces between the words and text. All the letters had to stand above the metal base at exactly the same height. All this was possible by using the hand mold. After Gutenberg chose the letters he needed to make sentences and paragraphs, he placed them onto a chase about the size of the page that he would print. This form held the letters tightly together to keep them from shifting. The letters were placed in a chase in a mirror image backwards and read from right to left. That way, when the letters were transferred with ink onto the printed page, they would be turned the correct way and could be read from left to right. The chase was placed onto an iron bed, a flat, shallow, box-like metal frame. The sides were pushed together to hold the chase firmly in place. The metal bars of type had to stick up above the edges of the frame. Otherwise, when the press came down on the letters, the edges of the frame would make an imprint. Shortly before his completed Bible was released, Gutenberg was forced to turn over his shop and at least some of his equipment to his creditor, Fust, who carried on the work alone at first and then later with the assistance of his son-in-law, Peter. One single hard-copy Bible would take a scribe about 4 years to finish. 2 men produced 450 Gutenberg Bibles in 1 year. Therefore, each Bible was produced 90 times faster and cost only 1/10 as much as a hand-copied version. Printing meant books were no longer only for the rich. Most literate people could now gain access to books. Instead of relying on priests or scribes to tell them what was in a book, people could read for themselves. Within a few decades after his Bible was printed, presses began to produce the grammars and dictionaries that were used to be the basic tools for increasing literacy.